This is HBR News number 411. Amazon shuts down Rossman. Submarine implodes. Woman kills her Uber driver, where we discuss the stories of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everybody and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you are laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian. I am joined by, as always, our co-hosts, Dr. Randall McCam, Hannah Wallen, and Mike J. And as a special bonus, you might notice, I have JoJo on camera, and he is just lounging in his dog bed, chilling out. I thought that maybe, if there's nothing else to look at, you can look at JoJo hanging out there. He's not dead. He's not even asleep. He's just tired because we went for a pretty long walk beforehand, and I want to make sure that he was good and tired before starting the show so that he wouldn't be interrupting. So anyway, we have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to join us in the comments section and hang out because there's going to be a lot to talk about. What we typically do is I try to find some interesting stories that we can put a spin on or look at from our kind of unique perspective and sort of chime in. It's not always like necessarily men's issues, although we do report on those when we have anything that comes out of it. But, it is sort of like looking at the broader culture and how, the sort of misandry, it feeds into it in many different ways. So, anyway, we have a great show lined up for you guys today. So please be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments after the show and in the live chat. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about this YouTuber, I guess, but he's also an advocate for the right to repair, which some of you guys might know about. It's kind of like this idea that, if we buy a product, it belongs to us and we should have the right to repair it or modify it or whatever because it's our property. His name is Rossman. He was the man who broke the story on the story that we covered last week where a man was locked out of his home by Amazon because he had one of those smart houses. And so his account with Amazon was canceled because he exposed what happened here. We're also going to be talking about the Titan submarine, which I know everybody was talking about and there's memes everywhere and all that. But there are a couple of key things that I think should be sort of brought to light regarding this really unfortunate tragedy. A woman murdered her Uber driver because she feared that he was trying to kidnap her, and more. So stick around, it's going to be a good time, and be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So on this week's, I just saw this story today. So I like video games, and we are going to do a story about gaming. It's going to be the first story. And one franchise that it was very popular for a while, I think it was like crowdfunded. It was kind of like a little indie thing called Skullgirls, which was a fighting game with a bunch of women in it, like 90% women characters. And of course, because of the artist's style and everything and the fact that it features girls, they were sexy girls because, video games have attractive people in them. And I was wondering how long it would be before Skullgirls received the woke chopping block, was brought, before the crucible to be judged. And apparently this article from Bounding into Comics says current Skullgirls developers censor popular fighting game series in the spirit of better reflecting our values and our broad vision moving forward. Sounds like a very ESG thing to say. So if you guys want to join us to read through this article to find out what's changed, if you know about Skullgirls, you don't have to. You can look it up. You can see what the art is like. I was following the artist before the game was released because I used to have a DeviantArt account. Yes, I was one of those people. And I followed a lot of guys that were sort of trying to break into, one industry or another. Animation, comics, and video games, for example. And this guy was really good at what he did. So, I don't know. I think it's tragic, but we'll see. Maybe he's actually behind this 100%. Or this is just DEI stuff, coming to get him. So if you want to join us in the patron show, either as a, just like in the live chat you are now, or as a part of the actual discussion, you can go to feedthebadger.com and start a monthly subscription. And if you don't want to find out that, if you don't want to lose our content in case we get yeeted from the internet for talking about the wrong verboten subject, then go to badgerfeed.com to find archives of all of our work and all of the streams that we've done. That's badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com for that. And there was something else I was going to add to this at the end, but I can't remember it now, so I'm not going to worry about it. Oh yeah, right. We are doing our monthly fundraiser, and I think it would be really great if you guys could give us some donations to the fundraiser, because I need to pay rent and feed my family, and I'm not trying to play the victim or anything like that, but I work here and I expect that I would at least be able to get by, and we can't do it without your support. So if you could, please go to feedthebadger.com/support and give us a donation. And lastly, if you want to send us a super chow, you can do that by going to feedthebadger.com/justthetip, and we will read your super chow. We will give it priority over super chats and even over Rumble rants, and you'll make sure that we get most of your donations, because if you go through YouTube takes like half of whatever it is you donate. So, and they also limit your characters, and they tend to be a little censorious if you say something that they find to be edgy, which is constantly shifting, standard. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get into the first story. So I just want to explain why I'm bringing this up. This article is actually a little older. It's from March, but I learned about it recently, and I learned about it because I was seeing other YouTubers discussing this subject in a kind of eye rolly, oh, why are we, talking about this again kind of perspective. So if you guys don't know, we had recently, there was the Game Developers Conference, the GDC, and Anita Sarkeesian spoke at this conference, and this is what she had to say. She wanted to say something about the DEI initiatives, and her claim is it's making the culture worse. I mean, I agree with that on the face, but remember who we're talking about here. So, Anita Sarkeesian, in case you don't know, is an intersectional feminist and a cultural critic, i.e., she is a feminist. That's what feminism is. It is critical of consciousness. It criticizes everything. It offers no solutions, and the people who use it make a lot of money. That's just the nature of the beast. So here's
spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, die isn't working because you're not dying hard enough.
Yes.
That's for anyone who doesn't feel like listening to the next few minutes of absolute pish.
So, diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a hot button topic in the games industry over the past decade. Basically every industry, let's be real. With numerous companies embracing DEI efforts in the wake of scandals and tragedies that emphasize the inequality of industry, specific companies, or society as a whole. But despite high-profile chief diversity officer appointments and more pro-diversity communications from companies, Feminist Frequency Executive Director Anita Sarkeesian used her GDC session last week to say they are making little in the way of tangible improvements. Diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are framed as attempts to transform workplace environments into a space that is welcoming for all people, especially those historically underrepresented, Sarkeesian said. I'm not here to tell you...
Not tangible. This is why tangible improvements aren't being made, because they're being made on the basis of things that aren't tangible, like race and sex. If you can... I don't know how controversial it is to call these things tangible, because the science is settled sometimes, and sometimes it's just not.
Sarkeesian continues and says, I'm not here to tell you that DEI is broken. I'm here to tell you that DEI is working as intended, and that's the problem. One of the problems with DEI efforts as they exist is that they're still built on othering people who are not white, cis, hetero, or abled. While there certainly are companies whose DEI efforts could be described as more performative than substantive, the intentions behind such efforts has little bearing when it comes to how effective they are. It seems like DEI has been co-opted or created, this is what Anita is saying, by the powerful to become a shield against criticism and real change. A DEI manager I admire told me DEI is often a panacea. It is the corporate embodiment of a watered-down liberatory movement. It is an attempt to produce equity in a system that is fundamentally inequitable and resists equity. She went on to say, the cynical take is that DEI work is a hamster wheel that executives can throw all the troublemakers on who keep nagging about change. It keeps the agitators running in circles until they burn themselves out, but rarely actually provokes leaders into handing over the keys, that's handed the keys to her, for example, to affect meaningful institutional change. Now, before everybody says anything, I just want to, this is the reason why I picked this story, okay? I have seen Clownfish TV, The Quartering, and many others that have talked about this, and they are making this thing where it's like, oh, Gamergate, that's so 2015. It's so, why are we still, like, you know, paying attention to this? Why are we still bothering with this? The reason is because Anita and people like her, so it's not her specifically, she's not Dr. Evil, she's just one intersectional feminist who we happen to know of because of what was going on in 2015. But this ideology, this cult, is infecting everything. And even if you go on YouTube and refute every single argument, which many people have done multiple times, right? Like Thunderfoot has gone, you know, to great lengths and all that. No matter how many times you refute and debunk and destroy and annihilate on YouTube or whatever, it doesn't stop them from going and getting into positions of incredible power and affecting the entire industry from the top down, which is what she's doing. In fact, she's saying that DEI, which is absolute company business suicide. It is suicide, okay? She's saying it's not woke enough because it's still, like, I don't know, reinforcing power structures or something. She doesn't care about what works. She doesn't care that you make better arguments. She doesn't care that she's wrong, that she's lying, that she's grifting. None of these people care about that. I saw, what's her name? I forget her name, but she was on, she used to be on the Young Turks, and then she was on the Majority Report, right? She's a feminist, and she was on, like, Tim Pool's podcast recently, and you know, Sean Fitzgerald, the guy, his YouTube channel is called Actual Justice, where he absolutely... Emma Vigland. Yeah, Emma Vigland, thank you. He absolutely wrecked her, okay? Because obviously, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And Tim wrecked her too. Obviously, she didn't know what she was talking about. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because she doesn't
see the skate park, Brian.
She doesn't care. Like, that's what I'm saying. These people are bad faith actors. They're not interested in debate. They're not interested in doing what is best for the world. They're trying to sow discord, to get people fighting each other, and to profit from it. They are the worst people, and Anita is one of them. This ideology is a cult. The only way to defeat DEI is to treat it like what it is, which is a religion. All of this Marxist, woke, whatever you want to call it, you know, critical consciousness, all of it is a religion, and it will not stop. These people can't be debunked, and then they take a step back and go, man, I guess I was wrong about that. I am hurting people and causing people to lose their jobs. No, they don't care. Look, you guys might know, I had a guy on my show a couple times. His name is Luke, and he was a professional in the animation industry. And we talked about the animation industry. He used to work on shows like Ben 10 and the Ninja Turtles and Steven Universe and all this. And he lost his job because of a Me Too letter. Even though he didn't do anything, they just targeted him because he was one of these people that just kept his head down and did his work and kept to himself. And they didn't like that because he wasn't a part of their cult, a part of their community, because he didn't believe in that stuff. So what do? They pushed him out of the industry. He can't get work anywhere. He's driving an Uber now, and this guy is incredibly talented. I mean, they don't care. And then first they go in, and it's like these animation unions. It's not just people like Anita. It's like all of these groups. They all have the same thing in mind. They're looking to make money. They're looking to put themselves in positions of power. So they get the men fired. You notice that this starts out with, oh, look, all these people, they got fired for sexual improprieties or for being chauvinist at work. Oh, how convenient. They happen to be the most powerful men in the company. Oh, look, even more convenient. Here are these powerful women that are going to replace them. Wow, what are the odds, right? This is what they do. So this is like rotten from top to bottom, but they always work from top down. This is in every industry, right? They get in at the top and they work their way down. So to dismiss Anita Sarkeesian because she was relevant on the YouTubes, like, I don't know, 8 years ago or whatever. That is a mistake. Do not roll your eyes when people say Gamergate. Do not, because it is the canary in the coal mine of the entire culture war. It was the first place where this started that people took notice. That's why it's important. And when you say, "Oh, everything is Gamergate now," well, yeah, it is actually. The comics thing, it's the same. What's going on in basically any industry, you name it, Hollywood, film, whatever, you name it, that's what's going on. The only difference is with comics, there's like a lower bar of entry because it doesn't cost as much money, it doesn't require as much manpower as, like, say, making a film or engaging in game development. So what I'm saying is that take this seriously. Anita Sarkeesian and people like her, so not just her, they have a tremendous amount of influence. Anita worked with people on the Assassin's Creed games. She worked with people on Dishonored. She worked with Neil Druckmann. She knows, like, Joss Whedon. She, like, rubs elbows with all of these powerful, influential people in the gaming industry and in the film industry. And her feminism comes with, and most of these people, they just take it because they think it's right. So you have to pay attention. I mean, Facebook made in one of the Facebook offices, I think it might be the main office, they have a meeting room named after her. This is not insignificant. And you have to stop acting like, it's so cringe. Stop it. This is not about fashion. This is not about what's cool right now. This is about what's right. And these people are wrong. So this is why I chose this. She got a speaking, a speaking engagement, I guess you could say. Probably got paid thousands of dollars because that's what she charges. Okay, at the Game Developers Conference, which influences the entire industry. And some of you might say, "Oh, it's just video games," but this is the whole culture. And the culture is very, very important, and they know it. That's why they're trying to change it. So anyway, that's it for me. That's what I wanted to say about this.
This needs to be get across to everyone who, in the last 7 years, has been going, Gamergate won. We need to get over that because Gamergate totally won and it achieved everything it needed to achieve. No, it didn't. I mean, I don't even want to mince words about this. Gamergate lost. I mean, I know we like to think that every small victory means a total win, like Gamergate won and Brexit won and electing Trump means that we won. No, none of it meant that these were just roadblocks, temporary roadblocks against the fucking thousands of tons of armored trucks that have just blown right over these roadblocks. What was the point of Gamergate? It was to prioritize, objective ethics in gaming journalism over what these woke assholes were doing. Did that work? No. It's continued right into that avenue, as it always intended to. And now they just have a boogeyman to bring up every time that it doesn't go their way. And it's the same with Brexit. It's the same with voting Trump. Like these things, like I say, threw roadblocks into existence to let people know that there are roadblocks. But they didn't. They really didn't do much, largely because of this this ethical perpetual motion machine that's going on. So what one of the things Sarkeesian said was the problem with DEI is that it still results in othering of certain peoples, and I'm like, yeah, you're the one doing the othering. Yeah, but you're making the others in terms of minorities seem like first class individuals, while you're also othering the normal people. I don't know how to describe it, but the straight, white, male, cisgendered normal people. This has always been a case of othering those people, and in your attempts to other those people, you've been othering the other people. This has always been a case of othering whoever you're allowed to other, and thereby by the inverse proportionate level, othering. Everyone is othered. This is what DEI means. Everyone is othered. It's either the good othered or the bad othered. And yet, no matter how much you prove their bullshit wrong, they're going to keep saying, well, the problem is othering. Yet you were othering. So no matter how much you prove that their bullshit is not working, they're going to keep going, well, the fact that it's not working proves that it is working. We're just not doing it hard enough. Like, just stop othering. It was going fine in the 90s. In terms of video games, in terms of media, in terms of general society, everything was going fine in the 90s. We didn't have to other each other. We recognized that there was othering going on, and we were like, yeah, let's not push on this. Let's just go back to fuck the other. Let's just eat pizza and play Nintendo. But that didn't work, and so we've got this far. And it's because there's this new kind of othering that presents itself as anti-othering. But any basic understanding of logic is anti-othering is just othering. You can't just throw an anti on the idea of othering and pretend that it's not othering. You just need to not do the thing in the first place. What Sarkeesian and her ilk have been doing is just layering others on top of the existing others and thinking it's going to work as long as you just other harder than anyone else has othered ever. And I need a drink while someone else talks.
I just want to add something before Hannah jumps in there about Gamergate losing. I don't think that we ever had a chance to really win decisively, because you're talking about, a small group of consumers who proportionately compared to the wider, customer base, right, that were aware of what was going on. And even within that group, there was a division between the people who just wanted ethics in journalism and the people who saw, like me, that there was a much more sinister thing behind it. It wasn't just about trying to get journalists to be ethical and honest, although that would be nice, but it was a problem with the actual ideology itself. And I was coming on a ton of Gamergate streams saying, guys, if you just get them to correct their behavior, even if you manage that somehow, it's only going to be short-lived, and they're just going to go back to what they were doing before once everybody got accustomed to it. So that's the battle. But even then, we are so small in comparison to the size of these corporations and how they've been this long march has been going on for so long that I never really thought Gamergate could necessarily win. I don't know what that would look like, other than as long as there were developers out there that were not putting this DEI and corporate index stuff ahead of making good products. Then that would be the best we could hope for. And to be honest, some of that's happening, but you have to be extremely persnickety about what you spend your money on. But at the end of the day, yeah, I personally never thought it was something that could be won, because this is literally a David and Goliath situation, except that David doesn't have a slingshot. So that's just my thoughts. But anyway, Hannah, go ahead if you wanted to say something.
So I've got a few things to say. The first one is that this is happening because of something called a natural gynocentrism fallacy. Mm-hmm. We think that our society evolved to be to put women first, and that it's evolutionary, that we can't do anything about it. We can't prevent or help that our society puts women first and makes women a priority in any and all situations, and so it becomes acceptable and inevitable that we would throw your civil rights, your human rights, your personal autonomy, your personal boundaries all under the bus on a woman's word or in a woman's interests. And that's what Me Too was all about, right? That's what a woman being able to throw her sexuality around as a substitute for skill or talent in her workplace a woman being able to substitute being overtly sexy, being overtly sexual in the workplace for being part of the workplace, for being involved in everything that's going on, for being a contributor to the projects and everything that are going on. And we discovered that in right before Gamergate with the Zoe posts and all of the crap about literally who's and all of the stuff that was going on there, right? That was all essentially about a woman being able to substitute sexuality for work. And sexuality is not work. It's play, right? It's not work, right? We're going to differentiate that between sex work, which does involve putting in a level of effort that's similar to a healthcare worker, but like we're one-on-one sex work, not I take pictures and put them on the internet and people pay money, and that doesn't. I won't even call that work necessarily. If you're not involved in another person, right? So the idea that this is natural is based on the fallacious attribution of gene centrism, or our reproductive interests and our reproductive function as women as gynocentrism. And that's something that I think a lot of people, I've already gotten a lot of people get mad at me for saying this, but here's the thing. You look at any historical argument for putting women first, even any modern argument, right, for putting women first, any of them, they all center on the golden uterus. Something that, I'm not the one that came up with the golden uterus syndrome. That's credited to Dr. Tara Pomatier. Pomatier, sorry. But the idea that women are special because we have the uterus, the idea that you can't substitute anything for it, that you can't reproduce without it, and a woman can only have one pregnancy at a time, whereas a man can impregnate tons of women at once if he wants to. So the uterus is essentially more valuable. Well, it's only more valuable because it makes babies, right? It's only more valuable because it gestates babies. That's the idea. So it's not because you're female. It's not because being female makes you special in and of itself. It's not because being able to bat your eyelashes and wiggle your hips and have boobs and look pretty makes you special. That is a totally different thing. So when I talk about natural gynocentrism as a fallacy, what I'm explaining to people is that we don't have to do this, right? We don't have to allow female sexuality, which is where this all starts, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion is about, initially, the first thing that came out, feminism. It's about women feeling othered. It's about women feeling victimized in the workplace. It's about women complaining about the pay gap. It's about women complaining about sexual misconduct in the workplace, whether it happens or not. It's about Me Too. It's about abortion. It's about all of those things, right? So if we don't have to do that, if the idea of gynocentrism is something that we can overcome, just gynocentrism in its own sake. In other words, well, because somebody is a woman, regardless of whether this is connected to her ability to reproduce, her interest in reproduction, or any of that, just female, just because she's female. No, you don't have to give her an advantage. No, you don't have to listen to what she has to say any more than you would listen to what a man says. No, you don't have to accommodate her feelings more than you have to accommodate a man's feelings. No, you don't have to make her feel welcome any more than you would make a man feel welcome. She's not special. She's just a human being. Yep. So all of this rides on our false belief that people just can't help this, that we just can't help putting women first, that we just can't help, dumping men under the bus in droves because women.
Yep.
Yes, we can. We don't have to do this. We don't have to have gynocentrism. We don't have to have diversity, equity, and inclusion. We don't have to have special accommodations for anybody. And we don't have to listen to some dumb bitch telling everybody that it's not enough, no matter how much you do. It's not enough. And it's never going to be enough just because she's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And humanity will not end just because we stop putting women first. I believe that we would hit our next stage of evolution instead. If men and women were able to be equally dedicated to the welfare of humanity in general, if men and women were able to be equally accountable for themselves and for each other, right, we would have a society where people bent over backwards to make sure everybody was okay. We would have what the communists say they want and yet never seem to achieve. You can't have a successful society in which half of the people are considered garbage because of their gender, and the other half of the people are unable to be accountable for themselves because of their gender. It doesn't work. We are spiraling down the drain because of gynocentrism, of pure gynocentrism. We can be gene-centric. We can put children first. We can even recognize that pregnancy means that women have to give some things up and get some things in order to protect the next generation while they are pregnant. But it should stop there.
Mm-hmm.
Dads are indispensable. When you don't have a dad in the home, the child suffers, right? So from the moment the child is born, it's equal. The baby needs dad as much as mom. So the only time women should be extra protected, and it should be limited to, is this dangerous to the baby, is during pregnancy. That's it. That's the only time that gynocentrism is at all justified. And it's not justified as pure gynocentrism. It's gene-centrism.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to solve this, what we've been talking about, we have to do that first.
Yep.
You cannot convince people not to do this diversity, inclusion, equity thing, this DIE movement. You can't convince people not to do that, not to base things on feelings, not to pretend that people have a right to feel a particular way rather than make an effort to make things the way they want. If you continue down this path, you can't get rid of that without getting rid of the idea of natural gynocentrism, and without getting rid of the behavior of overt, in every aspect of our society, pure gynocentrism.
Mm-hmm. Mike J, do you want to add anything?
I did. Just two things real quick. The idea that Gamergate lost, I think it's kind of flawed, because I think at the end of the day, no two people really had the same end goal in mind with Gamergate.
Mm-hmm.
I look at what was accomplished, and I think this is a victory in and of itself. The sort of awakening that happened, the noticing, if you will. It seems like all of these people are in lockstep with each other. I wonder why. And then you chase that a realization down the rabbit hole, and it leads you to some pretty interesting places. And I think that's what happened to quite a lot of people around 2014. I know that's kind of what happened to me.
Yeah.
That's literally the only reason I'm here talking to you, is because of Gamergate.
Yep.
If I had never got interested in that, I never would have found the Badgers.
Well, same here. I got involved in I wouldn't say it was Comicscape, but I got dragged for a comic that was centered on a man's romantic experience, and that was what landed me an interview on Honey Badger Radio, because of the reaction from my peers in art school in college. And so, yeah, it was the same kind of thing. I'm like, doing something that I didn't think was a big deal, maybe going a little against the grain, and I rustled some jimmies, to quote an old internet phrase. But I think that awareness, like I said, I mean, you could combine that with the fact that we now are in an internet age and we have information, at our fingertips. Like, this stuff was going on way before the internet, and now we all know about it, or at least a number of people do. And this is causing some serious change. We're gonna get into some of the other effects of DEI in a moment, or at least the mentality behind DEI, like where the concept comes from. But anyway, yeah, I'm with you, Mike. I think it's a matter of, like, again, if you thought that victory meant that all of the developers were just going to stop,
would be slitting the throats of journalists in streets.
It's difficult to know. It's difficult to know what victory even means in what we're calling the culture war, because like most physical wars are not fought on the ground anymore. They're fought in the air, by planes and whatnot.
Drones.
Culture war is even further into the air because it's conceptual. It's not even a Cold War. It's a sub-zero war, and it goes on very, very slowly.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to know what you can even call a victory or a loss until decades after it's happened.
Yeah.
And that's what we're experiencing right now. What was Gamergate? Can it be called a battle? Can it be called a division in the war? We don't even know. It sets some shit in motion. But we're not going to know until years after now, like what even worked and what even didn't. And even then, it's all going to be speculative. Like the fog of war is always present in war. But in a war where everything is made of fog, like how's anyone supposed to know what anything even is until the fog clears?
And
like I said, it could be decades from
war,
now.
if you will.
Well, the thing about it is, our society has done this before with different things, right? Like, it used to be normal to beat up on people because they were very different, because they were gay. We've had, or because they were intellectually disabled or had a mental health condition, or all kinds of things like that. Even when I was a kid in the 70s, like, other kids would pick on somebody because they were different. They didn't have to be overtly different. They only had to be a little different, right? And it's become, now you have this narrative that it's not okay, and it's only okay if the way in which they're different doesn't fit your political outlook, right? They're now politically different instead of physically different. These changes, when they take place, they don't necessarily, when you say win or lose, they don't necessarily take the path that a hot war would take, where you lose people's lives and somebody surrenders, and there's a declaration of victory and a declaration of surrender, and rules change and everybody agrees to it. Right? In the culture, when we call it a culture war, it's because there's two groups of people with different attitudes going, at each other's throats socially, trying to cancel each other. People act like cancel culture is a 21st century thing, but it's always been around, and so on. And victory is declared when somebody gets what they want, but it's never ending. Like the gay rights movement, the idea that, at least now, if you come out and your employer finds out about it, your employer can't just fire you for that, right? Oh, well, they're gay, I'm firing them. That's a win, right? The idea that, if a bunch of people tie you to the back of a truck and drag you down the street till you die, they're going to get charged twice, basically. Once with the crime against a human being that is illegal no matter who you do it to, and a crime that is based on hatred specifically because of the type of human being that you are. That's a win for the people that were pushing for that. That's law now, and people's social attitudes have changed around it as well. Right? People didn't get mad in huge numbers when the Supreme Court decided that gay people could get married, because most people were already on board with the idea that, yeah, sure, gay people can get married. some of us were disappointed that it had to be the Supreme Court and not a cultural movement. But those are wins. Well, what did Gamergate do? It made it possible for people to talk about these issues, right? And my first step into Gamergate actually, and like that was on Twitter, I started seeing the hashtag and everything, but it actually came from a place of having been discussing this in the men's rights subreddit before the Zoe post, before any of the incidents took place that led to it, or at least before they were public, that led to the Gamergate phenomenon. And I was getting written about by this insane blogger who likes to stalk a Voice for Men personalities, using what is now the pick me narrative. When I talked about
man boobs.
Yes.
Oh my God, I haven't heard of that. I haven't heard from that guy in forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was his other name? Anyway, go ahead.
He renamed his blog "We Hunted the Mammoth," which is
Yeah,
hilarious in and of itself. So for people to understand why that's funny, the "We Hunted the Mammoth" narrative is feminists getting castigated for hating men, given that all of society was built by men, and everything that they benefited from men's initiative, men's stoicism, everything that they criticize about men. And the feminist narrative is, well, we didn't ask you to do that. We didn't want that. Don't tell us that you hunted the mammoth and now we have to appreciate the meat. We're vegetarians. Leave us alone, right? So that's his thing, right? But he's a feminist.
We hunted the mammoth.
To advocate for women. I don't want his advocacy. He can go fuck himself. Sideways with a chainsaw, honestly. That man is a louse.
He's a ground sloth. That's the irony of him saying we hunted the mammoth. Who were we? We were the ground sloth. We went extinct long before the mammoth did.
So the point being, obviously, his ironic title for his blog, he is doing something to women, not for women. And he's not very effective in his own way, so who cares, right? But he did stalk a Voice for Men personalities, and I was one at the time. I still kind of am, just haven't been doing very much lately with them. But in any case, we had a big discussion a while before Gamergate in the men's rights subreddit about women's sensibilities in gaming cultures, because there was this thing that was starting to happen where gaming groups that were mostly guys, they would have a woman come into the group, and the next thing you know, the entire group would just be broken up. Like the guys would all be at each other's throats. They would all be, and it would start with, well, can you accommodate her by not doing this? And it would be something that, women find it reasonable to complain about, but really it's not that big of a deal and there's no point complaining about it. Like a character having as part of it, the character's mentioned physical description, enormous tits. Or, if you've ever seen the movie The Gamers, where they talk about bikini male, which isn't, to my knowledge, a thing, right? But Cheesecake in comics, where you have those great images of like Red Sonja in the bikini chainmail, like that kind of male, right?
The old She-Hulk books, like from the 80s.
And we were supposed to ignore the fact that we're playing a game that a huge portion of the gameplay is about magic, the use of magic, how magic works, how you overcome things that are normally hard and fast rules in reality with magic, but suddenly that specific one type of armor cannot possibly happen and it cannot possibly protect you. A ring on your finger can protect you, but bikini male can't, right? And so you have this kind of woman behavior and woman logic coming into gaming, and we were talking about that, and we got onto shit talk. And I kind of explained, like I did the girly take my dice and go home thing one time, and I didn't like it. I felt like a moron doing that. And it's what, the boomer generation of women were like, well, if men don't behave themselves around you, you just walk away. Well, what's behaving themselves? They didn't hit me. One of them razzed me about something, and his language was vulgar. And I was supposed to care about that. So I pretended to care about that. It pissed me off. that I had to leave, and I didn't do it again. I was just like, this is ridiculous. That's not me. I'm not a lady. I'm not injured if somebody uses the word fuck, and I'm giving up on that. So after that, I didn't take my dice and go home again. That was the thing that Futrell wrote about, right? His name is David Futrell.
That's it, David Futrell. That's right. Yeah.
And he's been on the news under that name, so I think it's his real name anyway. But in any case, he took issue with the idea that women can dish out and take shit talk as well as men, and should be expected to if they're going to walk into an environment full of men where there's an established culture already. That pissed him off. That was at least a year before Gamergate. So when Gamergate started happening on Twitter, the discussion started happening on Twitter, I was already kind of familiar with the issues and everything. And what I have seen in terms of a victory, as opposed to like ending the war, and like culture war is something that's been going on since the dawn of culture, and it'll continue forever. It's just people playing tug of war with the Overton window on specific topics. And the Overton window on, can you discuss the female behavior of throwing around one's sexuality while simultaneously throwing around one's fragility or perceived fragility as a means of controlling the men in a given cultural environment? Can you discuss that? And for a long time, the answer was no. You could in the 50s. You could in the 60s. From about the 80s on, it started to become a socially taboo kind of thing. You're being sexist against women when you admit that women do that. And we, I think, as a movement, both the men's rights movement and the Gamergate phenomenon, we moved that window back to a position where we can discuss that. So in my opinion, that's a huge victory, because without being able to discuss that, we would not be able to fight back against the idea that gynocentrism is inevitable and that we should just put up with all that behavior from women, and that we have to accept that men are going to let women do this to them, like step on them, throw their weight around, and so on. And there you go. So there's your win.
Okay.
Our loss, I would say, is in people not recognizing that is a win.
We have to move on, but I want to give Mike J the last word. I saw that you unmuted.
I did have one last thing I wanted to say real quick. Whenever Anita Sarkeesian speaks about anything, just reframe it like, I have noticed over there some people have money and power. Why isn't it mine?
Well, yeah, that's obviously what she wants to do, but the problem is that too many people are willing to ignore that or say, well, that's okay. And so like we should be calling it out, is all I'm saying. Call it out, show it to people, say, look, oh yeah, I heard this girl, she has like these great big ideas about how to change the industry. You just have to tell them, no, she's a grifter, she's trying to make money, she hates the industry. Hates it. She's gonna destroy it. I mean, DEI is gonna destroy this industry. It's suicide, like I said. So yes, I agree. I know that it's not, I think she's a true believer as well, though. I think that she's a true believer in this stuff, but she is in it for the money and especially the power, because she probably is already rich. She just likes having power, and that's what feminists do. So, but yes, I take what you're saying.
The other thing that you should ask yourself is, what does she actually produce?
Nothing.
What does she make? What does she do?
She makes other people do the opposite of what they should be doing. That's what she does.
What Anita Sarkeesian does is she is on the opposite side of that tug of war. She wants to get that Overton window back to where you cannot discuss women's exploitation of their sexuality and their apparent fragility as a weapon against other people socially and economically. That's what she wants. But what she wants is communism. Like,
as long as she's
a feminist, before she's any of these other things, she is a true believer in communism, and that's you can see that if you look up her discussion with she was on the stage with Jermaine Greer and some other feminists talking about choice feminism
Yeah,
versus
she was against it.
gender feminism. And she had some things to say about choice feminism. So you kind of look up Anita Sarkeesian on choice feminism, or I gotta figure out a way to put. I put a comparison up between her and oh shit, I can never think of her real name. Hermione.
Oh, Hermione Granger. Oh, you
Yeah,
mean
that
you
played
mean
Hermione.
Emma Watson.
Emma Watson.
Yeah.
They both had long statements on feminism. Emma Watson is a choice feminist. Anita Sarkeesian is a feminist communist. And I put their statements together in one video, but I can't put it on YouTube because it gets copyright strikes because
Mhm.
they're from news interviews, from big
Mhm.
news interviews.
Mhm.
So it's on Rumble, but it's on my channel, which nobody can find because it's tiny. So I don't know. Maybe I'll put it.
Yeah,
I'll
put
see
it.
if Allison wants to put it on the Honey Badger channel.
Yeah, that'd be
But it
good.
has to be on Rumble. It can't go on YouTube
Right.
again.
Right. Yeah, well, that'll be fine. Okay, so, but we got to move on. This has gone way too long, so
Yeah.
let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I got a couple super chows. I want to read them. So Meredith G gives us $5 and says, HBR News 411. Sarkeesian is complaining because she is counting other people's money and is watching as other grifters are getting the jobs and influence that she thinks she is owed. Yeah, we know, but I mean, she is getting money. So she just, like, there's never enough when you're this kind of person. She is getting paid. But that doesn't matter because she's also got a tremendous amount of influence over the industry. That's the real problem. But go ahead, Lauren.
If anyone doesn't really know, she's actually taking checks from, what was it, that show that we were watching? CNN. The CNN did like a special about like the history of comedy and the history of like sitcoms and things like that. And it's actually like, I wish it wasn't CNN that produced it because it's actually a really good, like, I was intrigued by it. But Anita Sarkeesian makes a fucking appearance in there. So she's getting money, guys. He is getting these checks out here.
Yes, and she is
making. Really need the unfunniest woman in history.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know.
Was Amy Schumer busy?
What is the absolute state of comedy, though? I mean, that it makes perfect sense. But anyway, we got to move on. Thank you, Lauren, for that. I didn't know that. Let us know what you guys think about this. Oh yeah, I do have another super chat. 2 more. So Zapier, that basically means an anonymous person, gave us $12 and says, Mike, I was watching some of your older videos and noticed you mentioned a British rock band or possibly the name of one of their songs. You may have even used a sample of the song. I can't remember what they were called. Sorry, I can't remember the title of the video you mentioned them in either. Your titles are wild. Anyways, you have any idea what the band was called? Yeah, go ahead, Mike. There's a thing I heard one time years ago.
I don't have much.
Don't have a lot to go on, but tell me what it is, Sherlock, you know.
Genesis. I'm just saying that because I would never say anything about Genesis. I don't know. That's the worst comment ever. Sorry. I love you.
It's not helpful.
You got to see how I've got nothing to work with there.
Yeah, it's not helpful. Oh, look, JoJo's alive. And he's back.
Let's get some good boys in the chat for JoJo.
Yes, good boy, JoJo. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, he's just like, whatever. And then I got another one, I think it's from the same person or another anonymous person that gave us $5 and says, take a shot every time Mike says other/othering. All right, so thank you. Oh, I got othering. I'm going to take a shot because I said it. NovaFan21 gives us $1 on Rumble and says, I think Gamergate got the last laugh considering all the game journalists going out of business while YouTubers and streamers do a better job of reviewing games just by playing them. I mean, I have other things I could say about it, but this story is just taking way too much time, and I got to pick up my wife soon. So let's move on to the next one. We're going to talk about the Titan and the submarine, that is. So, Mike, Jay, if you don't mind.
Why, certainly, Brian. So, just gonna be with the facts here, then we're gonna get weird with it. So, as many of you have heard by now, during an expedition to visit the final resting place of the Titanic, a submersible carrying 5 men that suffered a catastrophic failure, and sadly, all lives were lost. The submersible, which belonged to and was piloted by the CEO of a company called Ocean Gates. The crew of the submarine consisted of Stockton Rush, great name by the way, CEO of Ocean Gate and the sub's pilot, Hamish Harding, also a pretty good name, British billionaire and explorer.
Does he have a
Paul
monocle
Henry.
and a handlebar mustache? Because that's what.
Yeah,
Was,
it kind of
has he recently
like a
been
pit
to the?
helmet.
Yeah, like has he recently been to the Dark Continent to hunt
Dark
wild
Africa.
game? Yes. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Paul Henry Narguillet. I think I pronounced that right. I probably did not. I know a certain Frenchman will berate me later for this. A French explorer and expert on the Titanic. Shahzada Dawood, a rich Pakistani businessman, and Suleiman Dawood, son of Shahzada, who very tragically was nervous about the trip, but ultimately agreed on it for his father for Father's Day.
Oof.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. After contact with the submersible was unexpectedly cut off, search teams were scrambled, believing that the sub was still intact but stuck underwater. Teams from several different nations searched in what seemed like a race against the clock to find the trapped submersible before their oxygen ran out. Unbeknownst to the rest of the world, however, United States Navy personnel detected, quote, an anomaly consistent with an implosion or explosion in the vicinity of where the submersible went missing. This information was not shared, as it was believed at the time to not be definitive, but as of now, is believed to be the fate of the Ocean Gate submersible.
Right. The thing is, people die all the time, and no one cares. And I don't just mean in the grand scheme of things, like no one cares except their immediate family. I mean, some people have no accessible immediate family. They're just estranged or they've drifted apart or whatever. And then they die alone and penniless in some dingy apartment. And the closest anyone comes to caring is when the neighbors complain about the smell. That happens millions of times every day, and no one gives a shit. I would wager it's been happening a lot more in the last 3 years or so. And so when it turns out some billionaires have died in unusual and tragic circumstances, it's kind of understandable to not give a shit about them either. Like, why would we? Why should we? How does it affect my life? Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, yes, it's tragic, obviously. The reason it was such an alluring story at first was the notion that they were trapped alive 2 miles underwater in the freezing dark for several days. And yes, that would make an interesting movie. But to remind you, there are millions of people out there who spend most of their lives trapped in the freezing dark, and then they die and no one cares. As it happens, the people on board the submarine in question, in all likelihood, were killed by an implosive compression, which means they died almost instantaneously. Like in milliseconds, they went from, oh, hey, what's that creaking sound, to just red mist in the water. They didn't even suffer. They didn't have time to suffer. So you can see why there's some resentment towards this story. So some people are gloating over the deaths of rich people, and some people are gloating over the deaths of these cowboy submarine engineers who refused to hire 50-year-old white guys because they're not inspirational enough. And I don't think either of these are healthy reactions, because you're making it about the people rather than about the story itself. There is good reason to have resentments as to how this is even a story. Why is this even a story? Do you think this is the first time some underwater cowboy and his passengers have been vaporized in a submersible sardine can? Probably not. But it's the first time we've heard it in the news, certainly the first time it's been covered this heavily. As most of you will have already concluded, you are, of course, being distracted. The media is dangling a shiny set of car keys in front of you so they don't have to talk about something else. From what are we being distracted? The obvious answer. Yeah, the obvious answer is the absolute state of the kangaroo court banana republic that was once the US justice system. They really want you to know about Trump's indictment. Unfortunately, that whole shenanigans invites certain whataboutisms regarding the former vice president and his son. It's all jolly unfortunate timing. So the media doesn't even want you thinking about the justice system at the moment. Come back in 10 years when we've erased the Hunter Biden scandals from history, and we can pretend nothing happened in June 2023, except Orange Man indicted. In the meantime, here is a brand new urban legend about some billionaires who died in a PlayStation billy can 2 miles under the sea. Come, let us discuss this all day, every day for a week. It's all just so tiresome.
So, while the jangling keys, as they were being displayed in front of us, these 5 things all occurred. The release of the J.P. Morgan and Jeffrey Epstein emails, and then the subsequent discovery that J.P. Morgan just whoopsie-doodled 47 million emails. They're gone. We're never going to see them. The Biden impeachment vote, which was happening in the House. Bet you didn't hear about that. The Pentagon, speaking of whoopsie-doodled 60 billion more for Ukraine, or sorry, 6 billion more for Ukraine, because accounting error, I guess. The John Durham congressional hearing into the Russiagate hoax, that continued. And Hunter Biden getting a slap on the wrists for millions of dollars in what is essentially tax evasion. Something that anyone of us, anyone here speaking, anyone here listening, if we did that, we would not see the light of day for quite some time.
I'm very curious as to why it was so necessary to hire 87,000 new IRS employees. But for some reason, someone somewhere just lost $6 billion fucking dollars. And who's accountable? Is anybody gonna hang for this? Is anybody's job on the line for this? Oh no, nope. It's just you stupid taxpayer. You know, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna take this out of left field and bring it right back real quick. People are still fucking arguing about slavery. We're all slaves to the fucking Federal Reserve System. And if we don't wake up and realize what's happening, then we're all just gonna get taken for a ride. And that's what's happening. Because nobody's paying attention. We're all caught up in these stupid little insignificant squibbles with each other about, oh, you're not on my team. Listen, the government is not on our side. and if I just hate to say it, I just don't think that there's enough time to wake enough people up. I think there's people out there who understand what's happening and they want to do something. I don't know. I am normally an optimistic person, but right now I just do not have faith in the American public to actually pay attention to what's going on.
The tough thing is getting people to understand that something can feel beneficial and still be bad, right? And a comparison would be real beneficial here. I think if you look at a job that maybe, and I've mentioned this before, right? Sex work that maybe doesn't get treated like a job, by the public. It gets treated like a crime. And again, I'm talking about like in-person, direct, being a hooker, that kind of thing, right? So we recognize as a society, somebody does that job, and another person basically is able to say, you have to keep doing this job, and I get to skim off the top of your income. I'm going to take this percentage, and it doesn't matter whether they're taking 10% or 90%. They're taking, right? They're not asking, they're taking. that's a crime. We recognize that that's a crime. And we recognize that the aspect of it where the individual's liberty to stop working and not pay, not pay the pimp, that's also a crime. That's human trafficking. But in our country, and we have people who are ordered to work all the time for various reasons. Child support is one of them, but it's not the only one. And every job that exists, the government gets to skim off the top. And if you can't keep up with those payments, if something happens in between when you work and when tax time comes, and you find out that your employer didn't take enough off the top to send to the IRS during your work year, and you have to dig into your pockets and send the rest, they didn't rob you enough. They're going to rob you some more, but now you're not employed and you don't have the money. They will order you to work, and they will take off the top of that work to make you to pay those taxes, right? And we may have a constitutional amendment allowing it. We may have laws allowing it. We may have lots of philosophers and people arguing various points, trying to justify it. But taxation makes Uncle Sam your pimp. You are being trafficked. And the federal budget that has borrowed on the labor of your great-great-grandchildren makes Uncle Sam your descendants, the pimp to your descendants. And this is why the government gets mad when you don't have children and punishes you financially with higher taxes. If you're not going to to produce prostitutes for their future use, then they're going to take it out of your hide. So yeah, I would say if we want to talk about slavery, let's talk about how the United States government engages in the traffic of the citizens of the United States, trafficking of the citizens of the United States as workhorses for the budgets of other countries that we've borrowed money from, or they've borrowed money from in our name. There you go. But in terms of this titan of a disaster, the one thing I will say about this is that the only value to having this as a news story is, did we learn anything from it? Like, yes, it's a tragedy. Tragedy does happen all the time. Mike's right about that. When I moved into the apartment I live in now with my husband and my son, that happened here next door to us. There was a weird smell, and it turns out that the neighbor had passed away, and none of his family was close by. He wasn't in contact with people, and the only reason that anybody knew anything happened to him was because of the smell. And it wasn't us that noticed it. It was the people downstairs. And the smell went down before it went to the side. There's that happens all the time. Like, so if we didn't learn anything from this, then it's got no value of a news story, right? The two things I will point out that we could have learned is that when you are dealing with life or death situations, when you are dealing with do or die, you have to do this right, or somebody dies, you can't afford diversity, inclusion, and equity because you get killed. And the other thing is, if something looks stupidly dangerous, if you have a bad feeling about something and your gut says don't do that, don't do it.
Yeah, it's hubris.
Good lessons.
It's hubris. I mean, that's basically what it is. It's, there was some arrogance from the guy, and yes, I think that he had a DEI mentality. It wasn't like it was being forced on him, but he was thinking of it. He was like, "Oh, I want to be inspirational," and I think that was a mistake because, what you're dealing with is just far too dangerous. It's far too dangerous. It's like in the military, you get. There's plenty of guys that watch us that are in the military guys, and I asked them about what women in their units, right? and they're like, yeah, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. It doesn't matter how good they are. I mean, first of all, we lower the standards to let women join the military if they elect to. But beyond that, it's still a bad idea because the whole dynamic changes. And when you're in the military, you can't afford to like be anything less at 110%. Everyone in it moving as a unit. That's the whole point. And so that it just means that if you're not operating at optimum efficiency to get it done, then you're not going to get it done. Something's going to go wrong. This is true in any of these extreme environments. If you're working in, as a lumberjack, or you're on an oil rig, or you're in a military unit, or you're a cop, or you're a fireman, or you're in a submarine, you can't afford to play around with and treat men and women like they're the same, or whatever it is, right? You want young people. It's going to get people killed. That's, I think, the thing that I learned, or not learned because I knew this, but it demonstrates that in some circumstances, this entire equitable fantasy kills people. It kills people. I mean, so anyway, and it also disincentivizes people doing the right thing too, because it's designed to do that. What were we gonna say? Reality check.
With all these billionaires going into space, I mean, you know what I'm gonna say.
Well,
same thing is going to happen in space, but it's going to be even worse because it's in space. Some billionaires' bodies are going to get blown out into deep space, never to be recovered, and we're just going to have to sit here wondering what happens to a human's soul when it is cast into infinity forever. And that's going to be used for
a sci-fi book.
Yeah, and that's going to be used to distract us from some important.
I'm sure. Okay, but
the temperature from outer space would freeze dry you if your body was cast out into space.
But your body would remain intact, and it would drift through deep space for thousands of years before the sheer radiation of the atoms in it.
Yeah.
And that would take, millions of years.
Well, at least this is going to confuse the shit out of the aliens.
Yeah, right, when they come across it. You mean the ones in those people's yards? The 15-foot tall ones? But anyway, okay, we gotta
stupid enough to crash. We're not talking about that.
Yeah. Okay, we gotta move on to the next story, but let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. So I got another super chow. Michael Emmerich Winberg gives us $5 and says, on that subject, have you seen the recent CNN article illustrating pretty much what you guys are saying? To quote, 5 things to know for June 27th, Trump, Russia, possible collusion, extreme weather, January 6th, voting rights. I wish I was joking. And then there's a link. I'm not going to open it because we're way behind. But thank you for the super chow. I'll look at that later. Some of that stuff I already knew. I knew that the submarine was only being made into a big thing because it was a distraction. But I also think that there is something of value to get from it. And I also don't hate billionaires. So I guess I'm not on that bandwagon. Because it's reasonable. Like, if anyone's going to take a risk, to like learn about like the dangers of going deep underwater or in outer space, I guess billionaires are the best qualified because they can afford it, and then they'll communicate something to us, and I think we can take something from that. So there you go. Thanks, billionaires. All right. Let us move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this and I got a super chat, from Richard Bier for $1.99. It says, was a briefcase of info incriminating HRC aboard? Oh, Hillary Clinton?
Possibly.
Yeah, quite possibly. That's
possible.
It's
where all the lost emails are.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. Now, I think this is kind of a big one. So let's talk about Louis Rossman and Amazon. So, Mike J, I'm going to give it to you again.
So, Louis Rossman, YouTuber, most responsible for breaking the story about the man whose Amazon Smart House services were shut down for alleged racism, appears to be facing some blowback from Amazon. As you guys might know, Louis Rossman, he's a YouTuber. He's very big on the right to repair, which certain companies, especially electronics companies, namely his big feud is with Apple, they're not super keen on, and he has been trying to take them to task, but he dabbles in other things occasionally. He's been really big on the Reddit boycott as of late. But this came across his desk, and he took a look at this and went, "Oh, well, that seems kind of messed up." And he kind of broke the story, and he's where I found out about it, at least. And he's, I don't want to say solely responsible, but I think he's one of the biggest reasons why this story kind of got to where it got.
Mm-hmm.
Which was eventually to not quite front page news, but to, main media channels. So, about a week and a half after he drops this story and it kind of blows up, goes viral, Rossman received an email from Amazon stating that he had been rejected from the Amazon Associates program. So for those that don't know, the Amazon Associates program, if you've ever seen like someone who has like custom YouTube links, like, hey, if you want to like have the microphone that I have, or you want to, use the keyboard that I have, or the tools that I use, look down in the low bar and there's a link to Amazon that's custom. And basically, like, if you buy the item through that person's link, they get a cut of the money. Mm-hmm. Of course, not a huge one, not a big one, nothing major, but like, it adds up, especially if you're like a really, really big YouTuber. You can make maybe a couple $100 off that a month. But they said they were going to kick him out of there. So, in the email, they accused Rossman of, among other things, because there were other accusations, using friends, employees, relatives, or contractors of his to purchase items using his store link to personally enrich Rossman. Because again, the way it works is the more people buy the stuff through the links, the more money you get. And that's a huge violation of the agreement is, getting personal friends. But again, this is like one of the dumbest ways to make money. It's like, you get your friends to spend thousands of dollars and you make pennies on the dollar from it. Mm-hmm. Not exactly what I would call a get-rich quick scheme. So Amazon did not provide any evidence of these claims, but nevertheless, they terminated his affiliate account that was open for nearly 7 years with no issues. Naturally, Rossman, in a video, vehemently denied these claims by Amazon and disclosed that he makes almost no real money from the affiliate program in the first place. And, like, he's also one of these guys, it's like, why would I need to do this? I work for a billionaire. I have a very successful side business repairing, like, laptops and cell phones. I'm making pretty decent money on YouTube. Why would I need to con a couple of bucks off of Amazon per month? This makes no sense. But Rossman believes this is a clear-cut case of retaliation for breaking the Smart House story, and I can't really disagree with him.
So last week we reported, all of us, I mean, in this sector of the media, we all reported on the story like it's the first time it happened. Like it's the beginning of some ominous iceberg or other. It's sort of a natural rhetorical tendency, but in a way it's kind of naive. It's already a week later, and now we're wondering, okay, so how many times has this already happened? If efforts are being made to censor such stories and bury such information, if it's me saying if, like there's any area in society where it's not happening, then in all likelihood, this isn't the first time this happened. It's just the first time it's made it through Amazon's various legal firewalls and has managed to surface in the general media. We could generate some kind of formula, some kind of theorem predicting for how long something has already been happening by the time it makes it into the general media, let alone the mass media or the mainstream media or the establishment media, whatever we're calling it. Like something like time equals XY squared, where X is how well it serves the woke agenda and Y is its current search score in Google Trends or whatever. Basically, by the time you hear about something, something that damages the narrative. It's already shot past you at light speed, and now it's in the past. It's already a common occurrence. If Amazon is responsible for some bullshit, you won't hear about it for years. If the CIA is responsible for some bullshit, you won't hear about it for half a century at least. So you would have to conclude that there's some bullshit out there that we're not going to hear about until 23 or something. The stuff we know about Hunter Biden is just the stuff we know. That's just one laptop. Well, all right, two laptops. Hunter is a generous fellow in the comedy of errors that is his life. But think about the laptops we don't know about.
Sure.
The ones he actually remembered to pick up from the repair shop. There could be orders of magnitude more incriminating information out there. And there's some cranky guy in a suit in some office somewhere in Washington, D.C., who knows about all of it, about everything on every laptop. And no one else ever will know about all that stuff until someone digs up some time capsule that's been date sealed until the next ice age or whatever. But rest assured, on quite the other hand, if it's a story that serves the woke agenda, like Orange Man Indicted, then you'll notice the time warp moves in the other direction. It goes back in time. The mainstream media will report on it before it's even happened. And they will report on it like it's something that's been happening all the time, every day since the dawn of time. So yeah, like I was alluding to in the last story, inconvenient truths get sent into the future. Opportunistic lies get sent into the past. It's like they have a time machine without even having to bother inventing a time machine. I'm going to call it Dr. Randall McCann's theory of mainstream relativity. Time really is an illusion, folks. Lunchtime doubly so, especially during the phenomenon we call lunchtime. Make of that what you will.
Oh, there you go. When it comes to this issue, I think the biggest thing I have to say about this is this kind of proves that statement, that point that Rossman himself makes, that you buy things, you labor for currency, and then you spend the currency that is the trade-off for your labor for a thing, and you don't own it. Why are you paying money for things that you don't owe? Because you're in a situation where you think you have to have them. You know, we believe we have to have mobile phones, which are not phones, they're computers. They're in your, you got a computer in your pocket. Shouldn't really be a big deal to say that. I mean, I think everybody's probably got it figured out by now. Most of what we do with it has absolutely nothing to do with making phone calls. I don't think I've made a phone call with mine 10 times in the last month, honestly. But I don't own it. You pay money to keep it, and you pay money to use it, but you can't just buy whichever one you want and use whichever service you want with it. Right? I couldn't get whichever phone I wanted. I had to get one that my service provider was compatible with. And if I bought one off the internet and took it into them, they could say, well, it's not one of ours. We're not going to supply. We're not going to be like if you went to get fuel at Speedway and they're like, well, you didn't buy your truck from Marathon, so we're not gonna put gas in your truck. Right? That's pretty much how the system operates. And that's they'll do that to be able to make deals with different companies and get money from them. And it's all about making money off of you. But the minute that they think that you've made a dime, they do this. The minute that they're criticized, they do this. And this isn't the first time I've seen it. I probably was about 23, 24 years old when I ran into the guy in Findlay, Ohio, who was homeless, living in his truck because he sued his bank, and they shut off all of his financials, not just the ones with them. They blocked off every avenue of like, he couldn't cash checks, he couldn't get paid for his work, he couldn't do his job anymore, he couldn't cash in his IRA even with a penalty, he couldn't do anything. And that was before AOL actually was a popular thing. That was before AOL Unlimited, at least. So it wasn't something that, you're looking at today's everything is smart and everything is online and everything is communicating with the company a distance away and all that. This was just local. And that happened. This is the situation you're in. If you want to be able to use your labor to earn a living, support yourself, to make sure that you and your family have a roof over your heads, to make sure that you and your family have food and clothing and everything, utilities, this has to be fought, because that's the end result of this. The end result of this is any company can cut you off at any time from things that you've paid for, as long as they are of that nature. They have a connection to the internet, right? Can get shut off. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to add, except that I'm glad that Rossman is being very vocal about this, and I think that people really should take into consideration their relationship with whoever they get things from, to see if it's like, are you being taken for a ride? Are you buying things? Or are you participating in some kind of service that could be taken away from you if you have the wrong opinions or say the wrong things? That's something that we're going to have to be more adamant about. So that's what I would say. I wouldn't support Amazon. That would just be done. I don't have to. I try to buy local whenever I can. So at least smaller businesses, where applicable, won't be engaging in this because they don't have the means to do it. So anyway,
yeah, in fact, I would encourage people one specific thing: get to know your local farmers market now, because when this kind of shit hits your grocery stores and you can be cut off from buying food, that's going to be your only source.
Yeah, and you don't need smart devices, honestly. They're going to do more harm than good, in my opinion. So don't do it. Okay, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Are you aware of Louis Rossman? Do you watch any of those Right to Repair? I've been getting into that lately, actually, because I've noticed that everything is made these days, especially electronics, to essentially with obsolescence in mind. So, you get a phone and they expect you to upgrade your phone in like a couple of years. You get a computer, it's made to break down. If you buy an Apple product, holy shit, like you can't do anything to it without invalidating the warranty. So just, maybe we should be fixing our own shit. Maybe we should go back to a time where people can, get repairmen to come and take care of these things for you, instead of just throwing it out and getting another one. And the same people who have you do that are complaining about the environment.
Yeah.
So just something to think about. Yeah.
Planned obsolescence, you were mentioning, that's actually very widespread and has been for a long time.
Yeah.
And I will point out an example. My clothes dryer, our household, our clothes dryer is older than all three of my adult children, and it has worked the whole time. Eventually, the heating element wears out, and you can replace that at home. You don't have to take it to a repairman. You don't have to hire somebody to repair that, right? I've worked in various homes for various people who have more modern appliances because they are supplied by a company, because these are people with disabilities that have companies that provide care for them and provide housing and everything. So they have newer stuff. It breaks every couple of years. The usage isn't worse or bigger or more, it's really hard to break a clothes dryer. Actually, you have to do something really stupid to break a clothes dryer, but they wear out faster. And I mean every couple of years. And same thing with cars, same thing with computers, same thing with cameras, same thing with everything that you own, your appliances in your kitchen. All of it has that same, it's plastic parts, crappy electronic components, everything shorts out, everything breaks, and it's designed to do that. So you have to buy another one. And this is the next step of, not only is it made to not last, so you have to buy another one and another one and another one, but also it's not really yours. And if they don't like the way you live your life, your corporations that sell you these things can shut it off and not let you use it anymore.
Yeah. And I'm actually, with phones, it's funny because they actually like update it until it dies. Like, there's an update that basically makes your phone shit. I have this tablet, and I got it like a couple of years ago, and it's so slow now because of the updates. They've actually they plan it to become obsolete, and the people in the store will say this too. They'll be like, "Well, you're gonna need to upgrade your phone soon because it's kind of old. I mean, it's probably gonna start breaking down." It's like, why would it break down? Oh, because you're gonna patch it into oblivion. That's why. So,
I had a phone. I think it was an iPhone 6 or 7 or whatever, and I've had it for the longest time. And I got a message from a friend of mine. He's like, "Well, you're gonna have to upgrade your phone, otherwise it won't work anymore." I'm like, "What are you talking about? My phone, like, it's fine." No. But that's how Apple does.
Yep. Apple is absolutely the worst about that.
Don't update your OBS. For anyone who uses OBS, do not update it, because it's all it can possibly do is fuck it up.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I got a couple super chat, and we'll continue. So, another anonymous person sent us $5 and says, "How many new followers does HBR get monthly? Been following HBR for 9 years, and it seems like y'all haven't grown much. Has the MRM made any national progress in any country? I see channels like Better Bachelor and Amy Roma, I know she's a chameleon, that cover similar issues, and they grow like bamboo." Well,
we could be a big drama channel like Roma, and that would definitely get us clicks and views, but I don't think that would give anything substantial or of merits.
Yeah,
what I can tell you is YouTube loves us. Yeah. Ever since we first came about, YouTube was like, oh, you guys are men's rights activists. That's amazing. Please do come on board. We will give you your silver YouTube play buttons as soon as you get to. Oh, you're not getting to 100,000. How's that happening? We don't know. Crank. We don't know how this is happening. It's so weird. The feminists and the neo-Marxists are doing really well. I guess it's just because they're popular. But you guys, I don't know what it is. Don't look at the algorithm. The algorithm's nothing. Don't look at that. That's not happening. There's no such thing as an algorithm. But I don't know. Let's just wax lyrical about how the anti-SJW skeptic community from 2016 magically just died. Isn't it funny how the pioneers of anyone who spoke out against our bullshit have all just disappeared into nothingness? Mm-hmm. You guys all argue amongst yourselves about what you did wrong, because it's not like you can just add one line of code to an algorithm at YouTube that just defines what's going to happen to your channel.
Yeah.
It's funny. People said the same thing.
Don't be such a conspiracy theorist. That can't happen.
People said the same thing to me about being throttled on Twitter. Oh, it's just that you're not popular. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. And it was a consistent thing. Look at that. You're only getting a couple of likes and stuff on your tweets, are you actually engaging with people? Well, and I would look, and my engagement was really low, and I could point to where the change happened, and it was really weird too, because I went through a period where I was looking at how many views I was getting to my tweets, and I was nervous about getting too much attention. And then all of a sudden, one day, it was exactly the opposite. There was a series of weirdnesses that happened with the system that Twitter allows you to use to figure out your engagement. All of a sudden, my statistics were wonky. I couldn't get them. They disappeared. I had no statistics for particular days that I had previously had statistics for. And when they came back, they were different. And I started screenshooting at the time because I was like, this is really weird. And I thought it was some sort of a glitch. And pretty soon that stops. But now nobody's answering, things that I've said. People are saying they can't find my account. And my views for my tweets were down, by like, well, they were down to a fraction, like a hundredth of what I was getting. Really, really, really throttled. And then, after Musk took over, nothing changed immediately. And I'm like, well, maybe they were right. Maybe I pissed people off too much, because I'm pretty good at pissing people off. I think most people have noticed that. No, I don't even have to try, right? Well, then the stuff about the Twitter files started coming out, and it was admitted that they were throttling people based on political views, and the team that remained after all the people who didn't want to work left, they started removing some of the with stuff like this. You can't just go in there with a pair of tweezers and remove an algorithm. You have to go in and rewrite another language of writing. You have to rewrite whole pages and make sure that you haven't removed one detail that actually 50 other things are tied to. And so they had to go through and analyze and start removing that, start dismantling that. And at one point they dismantled something in that mess, and my engagement went up times 100 again. All of a sudden I was getting replies from people that, hey, this is the first time I've seen your account in 4 years, and we aren't going to get that with Twitter or with YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't an independent person with his own ideas that it wants things to be open and communication to be like a mosh pit on YouTube. That's going to come in and eliminate the throttling algorithms and dismantle that system. So we're never going to be able to prove that that's what's happening. But I can tell you, there was a point at which we had exponential growth on YouTube. And as soon as we started to get attention, there was a clampdown.
Yeah, it was on the main channel, but we stopped using the main channel because, just like Dr. Ranimer Cam, every time we uploaded something, we would lose subscribers. And we weren't sure if there were people leaving. I mean, they probably weren't. They were just being unsubscribed. So, but I want to, because we really got to move on. So I want to answer your question. Have we grown? We got, in this last month, 1 new sub. We're at about 9,260 subs right now. And
you're in the green. You're actually in the green.
Yeah, we are. Well, our views are up, so we're getting more views, more watch time, etc. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just because, honestly, to quickly comment on what you're saying, Chloe Roma, she has the advantage of doing shorts, and she's I guess some people find her attractive. It's a woman. I think women get like a +5 on their shit, and she makes just short videos, and they're not like super deep. So I think that it's not like as dangerous to let her just grow. Maybe they will throttle her later. I don't know. And then as far as Better Bachelor goes, he's a MGTOW creator. He's not a men's rights guy. He probably knows about the stuff. But again, he's just commenting on the dating scene, and so many other podcasts do that already. But I think that our perspective is not really there. It's talking about like we're trying to talk about root causes of problems that must be solved. So I'm hoping. Go ahead.
It needs to be said. YouTube has the ability to manipulate any numbers they want to.
Yeah.
Like if you have high view numbers, they can tweak those numbers so it looks like they're lower than they are. If you have high subscriber numbers, the admins at YouTube can tweak those numbers so it makes it look like those numbers aren't as high as they are. They can present any reality they want to. And despite there being all these right-wingers out there, these conservatives out there who are going, look how demonetized I am. Look how throttled I am. Look, if you have 1 million subscribers, if you have 500,000 subscribers, it's because YouTube is letting you have that many subscribers. It's perfectly within like even the slackers at YouTube who are in charge of coding, all they need to do is add one line of coding. If channel.name equals Honey Badger Radio equals I don't know, whatever they plug into to ensure that your numbers never display what the numbers actually are.
Yeah.
There's another aspect to this too. When you have in-depth discussions that don't just take the surface of outrage porn and say, "Gosh, this is terrible. This is happening. I'm so upset," and then move on to the next thing. You end up, there are people that will watch hours and hours of this outrage porn after that outrage porn after that outrage porn, and they'll feel informed because they know these things are going on, but they may not understand the causes behind them and so on. And I think, people are talking about actual porn in the chat. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if she does or if she doesn't. But
she doesn't have an OnlyFans, but she does have a Patreon. So there is some that I guess there's stuff on the Patreon. She might have stopped, but I know that there was. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm not casting aspersions, but
I was going to say the thing that will make somebody popular is doing outrage porn, not nude porn, but clickbait, basically, that gets people riled up and never actually, there's no pay dirt of, okay, this bad thing happened, I'm going to talk about it, here's why it's happening, here's what can be done to address that cause, and here's my opinion on how we can achieve that. Like, you leave those last 3 bits off and you just go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. There's a lot of that now. And I think those are the accounts that are growing exponentially. And it's not a coincidence that administrators like people who promote outrage porn in terms of men's issues, but don't like people that talk about causes and effects and maybe being able to affect change in order to address those causes, because they don't want those things to change.
Yeah.
So they'll emphasize people that do this outrage porn business because they sort of provide a cover or detract from the ability of people to find and watch the channels that actually address things.
So I have a plan, hoping that it will help us grow, is to put my dog on camera. Right now he is trying to find a new comfortable position to sleep in. Jojo. Hey, Jojo.
There's some more good boys in the chat for Jojo.
Are you okay, buddy? Are you okay? Look at him. Look at him. Look at him. Look at his face. I know. So, animals always work. So maybe we'll go to a million subs just with a Jojo cam action, and that will do it. So... okay. Anyway, I got to finish the super chats. Look at that face. So Zipier, thank you for that. And another anonymous person gives us $5 and says, McDonald's ice cream machines is a prime example of planned obsolescence. Have you seen the documentary on it? Apparently there is a class action lawsuit about it. No, but I will look into it, and I think that's it for. Oh no, wait, no, that's it. Yeah. No, wait. Richard Bier gave us. I think I read this one already, but I'll read it anyway. $4.99 and says how many were locked out of payment processors and demonetized for wrong speak again, and even alternative processors caved into the woke mob too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, we've covered that in the past. I'm saying this is just another step in that pattern. Again, like this video just for the dog. You don't have to do it for me. Do it for JoJo, because he wants you to pet him, and the only way you can do it is by smashing the like button. So pet him with your like buttons, everybody. And all right, so we're gonna move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. This one is interesting. So a woman from Kentucky shot and killed her Uber driver in El Paso, Texas, believing she was being kidnapped. On June 16th, Phoebe Copas, 48, was in an Uber driven by a 52-year-old Daniel Piedra Garcia. At some point in the ride, Copas believed she was being taken to Mexico. She was on her way to meet her boyfriend at a casino, and police said there was no evidence Piedra was driving off course, but that Copas was frightened by signs that read Juarez, Mexico. So there were signs on the street. Copas allegedly grabbed a handgun from her purse and shot Piedra in the back of the head. The vehicle came to a stop after crashing, because it was while he was driving. She shot him in the head while he was driving. The vehicle came to a stop after crashing into barriers on a freeway. She then allegedly texted a photo of her wounded Uber driver to her boyfriend. Piedra, who was shot in the head and wrist, was taken to a nearby hospital and was on life support for several days. His family decided to take him off, as doctors said he would not recover. Initially charged with aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury, Copas' charges were upgraded to murder and bond set to $1.5 million. Piedra's wife explained on a GoFundMe for hospital and funeral expenses that her husband was the sole provider of the family and unable to work at his last job because of a knee injury. In a statement to the El Paso Times, Piedra's niece, Didi Lopez, described her uncle as a hardworking and really funny man. He was never in a bad mood. He was always the one that if he saw you in a bad mood, he would come over and try to lift you up. Now, I just want to say about this before we comment on it, that here's a picture of the man. This woman's gun, she got it like legally. There's nothing about it, like of the charges she faced. There's nothing about her carrying illegally. So this is a gun that she is supposed to own. So this is not a case of someone having a gun they're not supposed to have in a state that has gun laws or restrictions or whatever. So the reason why I picked this, I'm just going to make this statement. We have talked in the past about the problem with our culture today and giving women access to guns. Now, I am a big Second Amendment guy. I'm pro-gun. People should have it. But the problem is, and this is a real problem, okay, is that women have been propagandized from birth to fear men, to basically consider them dangerous. And this is why, because feminism has said, well, there are rapists everywhere, you're going to get sex trafficked, you're going to get kidnapped, whatever, right? And so what the problem is that women that, that don't take the steps to protect themselves do in fact put themselves at some risk, especially in high crime areas, just like the men who would do the same. But when you give women guns, if they think that every man is out to get them, then one day might come where they will take a man out because they're afraid he's going to rape them. So the problem, so the issue is this. It's the same issue with libertarian thought all over the place. The issue with it is that I would like to live in a world where we could be free in that way, where we could all be, carry guns for our own protection, where we would have a right to bodily autonomy because it is a natural, God-given right or natural right that we're supposed to have. But the problem is that feminists have, and others like them, have essentially fear-mongered women for so long that they might do something like this. Now, this woman might be just crazy, but I think that it's a legitimate thing to concern yourself with. Is like, what are we living in a time where we can essentially give women license to kill if they feel afraid? because they might. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. That's why I brought this story up.
Yeah, when I posted this in the chat, I think I posted something about this being a direct result of the perceived right to feel safe, which is not a right. It doesn't exist. There is no right to feel safe. You don't have a right to any particular feeling. You have a right to react however you are going to emotionally, right? You have a right to decide how you feel, but you don't have a right to have the conditions provided to you to slip into a feeling of safety. And that's something that women have been telling other women, and older women telling younger women and so on for so long, that they are now infringing on the right to live, the right to autonomy, the right to travel, the right to engage in free trade with other people, because they don't feel safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the right to feel safe, which again is not a real right, has been used for well over a century to attack other people's rights to the detriment of all of society.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The anti-alcohol movement came out of women's right to feel safe. They used the idea that drunks were wife beaters to get the laws changed, to get the amendment put into place, and everything. Right? That's the whole temperance movement was based on a false allegation, right? A whole society-wide false allegation. This story is about a woman exercising the perceived right to feel safe in violation of the very real right to life. And when it comes to the right to bear arms and the right to defend yourself, those are limited rights. You don't have the right to defend yourself against nothing. You have the right to defend yourself against an imminent threat. Not a threat that you feel, a threat that is real. This man was not a real threat. There was no imminent threat. So this woman took upon herself to feel like she had the right to defend herself when there was nothing to defend against. Until women can be accountable, like a man, for distinguishing between a perceived threat and an imminent threat. And when I say perceived threat, I don't necessarily mean that you have seen evidence of a threat, but that you feel threatened, even if there is no evidence of a threat. That's her perception. There is nothing else but her perception there. She had her combined assumptions around his ethnicity and assumptions around some signs. Gee, this guy is Latino. He must be kidnapping me. Like, that's a prejudice.
The woman was black, by the way. The woman shot him.
Oh, geez. So a black prejudiced woman against that doesn't surprise me, though, actually.
No.
After some news stories in the last few years have come out. But yeah, like, we are at a point now where night motorcyclists beat me to it. Gotta love them. We're at a point now where a woman can demonize a blind guy for staring at her in the gym and get him thrown out based on a perceived threat. There is literally no real threat there. He can't even really eyeball her because he is blind. That's a real news story too. I'm not surprised that this happened. And I'm not going to be surprised if she ends up getting more lenient treatment than she should because she's a woman and she felt threatened. She shouldn't get more lenient treatment. But this is where we are with this idea that women have a right to feel safe. So until that changes, I got to agree with Brian. Being a woman might be, as much as I want to be able to own a gun, being a woman might have to be a disqualifying factor. Unless our society is going to hold women as accountable for assessing their situations and appraising their actions before they take them, and not shooting somebody who is not a threat, unless they're going to hold them as accountable for that as they would hold a man, then women shouldn't have guns.
I'm just going to reiterate what Hannah just said. But before we get into the matter of what made her kill this man, or should I say after the matter that Hannah has just described, in terms of what made her kill this man, whatever set of ideologies led her to pull the trigger, we really need to establish some things we haven't been told. What we don't know, as far as I can tell, is what happened between when she pulled the gun and when she fired the gun. I'm not privy to any audio or video clips. I'm not sure if there are any. This, by the way, is a very good case in point for why every Uber driver should make an effort to install cameras in their vehicles, even if it's not a requirement by Uber, the company. It's important because we need to know how the events played out. It's just as important as it is to fixing body cameras to policemen. Did she just sit there quietly, silently panicking to herself, and then she pulled out a gun and without saying a word, she shot the guy in the back of the head? Just like that, ask questions later and so on. Because if that's the case, I don't care what set of ideologies are in your head, that right there is cold blood. In any possible given definition of what cold blood even means. I don't care how insane you are, if you're capable of executing someone on no further basis than some, I believe, road signs you happen to read with the word Mexico on, you are extremely dangerous as a person, and you need to be poked in a padded room for the rest of your days. It's a suspicious story, isn't it? I saw the word Mexico on a sign, so I just killed a man. Here is something you can't understand, Your Honor. It's the kind of story a lying psychopath would spin in order to cover the reality that she simply wanted to kill a man and get away with it. However, given that she apparently shot the guy while the car was still in motion
on the highway,
causing it to crash into the barriers of the freeway, this does not.
She might also just be stupid.
Yeah, but it doesn't suggest that it was a cold, calculated killing. If she just wanted to kill a man, she would have waited until the car was stationary, so as to not endanger her own life in the process. Evidently, she did endanger her own life in the process. She shot the driver of a moving vehicle that she was in. She was willing to do that based on her own hysterical paranoia, which in a way is even more scary. If you thought self-serving psychopaths were bad enough, wait until you've seen evil so concentrated that it will destroy itself in pursuit of destroying you. Yeah. So that's probably how this played out. She pulled out the gun, held it to the back of this guy's head, and yelled something incoherent along the lines.
I don't know you. That's my purse. Wasn't that in
King of the Hill? Are you taking me to Mexico? Are you taking me to Mexico? What? No. But I've seen 2 signs saying Mexico. You're going to rape me and sell my body parts for fentanyl, aren't you? Ma'am, no. It's quite normal to see signs for an international border within tens of miles of that international border. Where's your pride flag? You're a racist, bang, crash wallet. So, yes, we do have a problem with ideologically paranoid women. Some of them are cold-blooded killers. Some of them are hot-blooded killers. But they're all one psychotic episode away from incidents of wanton destruction of life, property, and infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Are there barriers in place? Are there checks and balances to stop insane people from owning a gun? Yes, there are. but they don't just ask you spot questions like, is the sky blue, or do women have penises? They tend to be references along the lines of, has the state ever declared you to be mentally unstable? And unfortunately, the state will not declare even the batshitest, ass-hattest, paranoid, borderline, narcissist, dark triad feminists to be insane, no matter how insane they clearly are. Mm-hmm. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what needs to change. Feminism needs to be classified as the mental illness it is, and not as the righteous human rights movement that it never has been. If you can vet people, based on their perceived racism, if a man can get locked out of his house because of perceived racism, then sure as fuck we can find a way to at least be allowed to give passengers a 1-star review based on their perceived sexism against men. If you have pronouns in your bio, I'm not picking you up as an Uber driver. If you have a Tumblr account, I'm definitely not picking you up as an Uber driver. If you're a registered Democrat, then I'm driving in the other direction as far as I physically can, just to be safe. You should be allowed to do that, at the very least. And if your profile as a driver at Uber gets cancelled because of your repeated refusal to pick up crazy feminist Karens, well, I guess that sucks, but at least you didn't get the bottom of your skull shot out through the inside out, through the gaping mouth of your shocked Pikachu face. Take the wins where you can get them. Maybe you should be boycotting Uber like you boycott Bud Light. This seems like it might be a more pressing issue. I don't know. Yeah.
Just one other thing. If they're wearing a mask when you come to pull them up, just drive by. That's how you know. If they're still wearing a mask, just go. All right.
Mike. I have things to say here.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I find myself in the unenviable position of taking a contradictory stance here. I'm a very 2A absolutist sort of person.
Mm-hmm.
This was actually one of my favorite things about being able to move out of California to a state that actually respects the Second Amendment. And while things like this are absolutely tragic, unfortunately, crazy people aren't really noticeable until they do something crazy. And this extends to both genders. I mean, if you want an example in the opposite direction, I don't know if anyone remembers the killing of Aaron Danielson, who was in Portland as part of Patriot Prayer.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And you had the individual Michael Reinhall.
Yeah.
Who, from his retelling of the story, he was pinned down behind enemy lines with MAGA trucks circling and honking and threatening, and then Aaron Danielson approached him and was like, "You're gonna make America great again, right?" And then all he could do was shoot him, and then we had the camera footage, and it turned out that he stalked him for several blocks, hid in a parking structure, and then shot him in the back like an absolute coward.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, this sickness, in my opinion, isn't something that we can solely condemn any gender for. Yes, you can talk about repercussions and more lenient sentencings and things like that, but unfortunately, things, like I said, happen when you allow freedom. School shootings happen. Criminals do criminal things. Batshit crazy women shoot their Uber drivers. Which, again, furthering the point, like, do you think a guy with a gun to the back of his head would really be like, well, we're still going to Mexico?
Yeah.
Sorry, that gun's not going to stop me, lady. You're getting raped and your body's going to be dismembered for parts. Yeah.
I don't think that you're saying anything that's really contradictory, because I'm still totally on board with the Second Amendment. I'm talking about what the potential consequences of the propagandizing of women is could potentially lead to. So I'm not against it still, but I think that it's like if you give absolute freedom to an absolutely insane paranoid culture, then you're going to get a lot more insane paranoia. It's like burning down a church and expecting all of the nuns and ministers to become atheists. So the problem is cultural, but the goal should still be, everything that you advocate for, because I advocate for the same. It's just that, like, we can't just, do that without taking the consideration. Yes, there'll always be the occasional psycho that wants to kill people. That's just what you have to deal with when you want to live in a free society. But I do think that the cultural problems have to be dealt with.
Yeah, there are some things I've been watching happen with conservative Twitter. I'm mutual follows with a lot of conservative Twitter, believe it or not, but not the big wigs, right? Just the regular folks. Nobody big ever notices me.
You don't have a
I'm
direct
able
line
to
to
fly
Tucker?
under the reindeer. Huh?
You don't have a direct line to Tucker? You lied to
Oh
me.
gosh, that would be weird, actually. But although anybody that did for a long time, because you could contact him through Fox News. You can't do that now. So unless he's put other direct contact information out there, you just have to tweet at him and hope he sees your tweets. But in any case, like your regular Joes and regular Janes, right? A lot of pro 2A stuff that I've seen talked about is talked about in terms of women protecting themselves from men. And it bugs the hell out of me, because when you actually look at crime statistics, the phenomenon of violent crime is divided very, very starkly between men and women, right? Men are subjected to the whole spectrum of all different types of violent crime, and they whatever happens in terms of violent crime, there's a man somewhere that's experienced it, right? Whatever types of violent crime are committed, the majority of the victims, aside from a very few small categories, are men. So women don't need guns to protect themselves necessarily from men in general. And in fact, when you look at the types of violent crime that do affect women, it's not men who are strangers to them most of the time, right? It's men who are close to them and who have a history of problems. So essentially, our society has protected women so well that they've eliminated all of the threats except for the weirdest ones that are the hardest to predict or the hardest to admit are happening. And a gun's not necessarily going to protect you in that circumstance, because it's going to happen in an environment, in a situation in which you are making yourself vulnerable because you know that person. So it's the idea that threats from male perpetrated crime are a reason why women might need guns should be the least part of the discussion. It's a freedom, it's a right, but that's not what I'm approaching it from in terms of female use of guns. It really, really drives me nuts that we don't hold women accountable when they misuse things. Right? We have a cultural phenomenon of treating it like, oh, my bad, I'm ditzy, I'm a woman. Oh, my bad, I'm paranoid because I'm a woman. Oh, my bad, I was on my period. Oh, my bad, I exposed everybody to a bodily fluid at work. You can't fire me, I'm a woman. Right? Just whatever. And I would say that we should treat gun rights very consistently. It's illegal to give a gun to a 5-year-old. Right? If somebody's not more accountable than a 5-year-old as part of our society, and we won't give a real 5-year-old a gun, why would we give that person a gun? Now, I don't want to say that we should have gendered rights, but if women can't straighten their shit out and take responsibility for appraising their actions before they engage in them, and for at least making sure that what they suspect is true, or at least likely true, before they take an action that is damaging and permanent, then maybe we should go back to coverture. And I wonder if under coverture, women would have gun rights, because under coverture, women were presumed to be more childlike than adult-like. Women didn't have responsibilities financially. They didn't have financial rights either. They didn't have the vote, until they fought for it. And when I say fought, I mean a social fight, not a real fight. But they weren't responsible for any of the things that men who physically fought for the vote were responsible for, right? Even today, only like 14% of our military in the United States is female. With all of the things that women are allowed into, with all of the opening of everything and equality this and stability that, only 14% of our military is female. So, I can't necessarily argue that we deserve equal rights when it comes to these things. We don't have equal accountability. We don't have equal responsibility. And we get excused when we do shit like this. So, if the system wanted to change my mind, if the people involved in the system wanted to change my mind, if they even knew I existed as more than a number that pays taxes, they would hold this woman fully accountable. They would give her the same sentence that she would get if she was a man. The news media would not sympathize with her, and the public would not sympathize with her. So we'll see what happens. Are we going to see equality, or are we going to see gynocentrism? Because you can't have both.
I'm going to let Mike J finish his thing, and then we'll move on to the last story.
And the last thing I have to say is just, you always have to be extremely careful when you suggest that the government should either grant or deny a certain group of people a right, because it's so very easy, once the power is lost, for the new powers that be to turn around and say, well, you seem kind of dangerous. Those friends of yours are pretty dangerous. Those guys that think the same thing that you do are pretty dangerous. I don't think any of you guys need guns.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we'd be better off, without you guys having guns.
Yeah.
Haven't you seen what those people are saying online about you guys?
No, I
We
agree.
just need
It
to
sets
get to a point where we stop granting people immunity from being treated as equally responsible for their actions, because they're female.
No, I agree. I mean,
Agreed.
I could get into a much bigger thing, but we've gone super long sausage. So
No.
But I got one more story, and we'll try and just keep our responses to this brief. It is a bit of good news. Latondra, sounds like a character from Napoleon Dynamite. Latondra Newton, I'll just say Newton, started serving as Disney's Chief Diversity Officer in 2017. Since then, Disney has been on a whirlwind of various diversity initiatives. According to an internal memo sent out by Disney HR, because of course it's HR, Newton decided to leave the Walt Disney Company to pursue other endeavors, or ruin other companies. According to the memo, Latondra has led the company's strategic diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, including partnering with stakeholders across the enterprise to amplify stories of the world by people around the world. She has been dedicated to ensuring every person sees themselves and their life experiences represented in a meaningful and authentic way. End quote. Just for real quick, stakeholders do not actually have capital invested in a company. That's not a stockholder or a shareholder. It's a stakeholder. Look it up. It's different. Disney has most recently released a live version adaptation of the cartoon feature The Little Mermaid. However, Disney faced controversy for race-swapping Ariel for actress Halle Bailey. The movie has flopped in China, no shit, a market Hollywood has pandered to because of its size. The movie only had $13,000 of sales in China for pre-releases. Holy shit, that's low. Another recent movie from Disney Pixar, Elemental, has only earned $29.6 million over the 3-day weekend of June 16th, the worst weekend premiere for a Pixar movie since Toy Story in 1995. Newton co-signed a May 2020 memo in the wake of George Floyd's death with the memo titled "Resolve in the Time of Unrest." The memo said that, quote, "to use our compassion, our creative ideas, and our collective sense of humanity to ensure we are fostering a culture that acknowledges our people's feelings and their pain. We also realize that now more than ever is a time for us all to further strengthen our commitment to diversity and inclusion everywhere." And she has left the company to seek other opportunities. So anyway, I guess you could say a bit of good news. I don't think the DEI stuff is working out with the people who actually have money invested, you know, like the shareholders and the stockholders, as opposed to the stakeholders. Stakeholders they have an emotional stake in the company, but they're not actually invested, or their stake is not a part of, you know, like the importance. So that's why things are going. That's part of what is causing companies to go woke. Is they have this stakeholder capitalism, which is what they call it, which is not capitalism because there is no actual exchange of goods. And yeah, I mean, it's terrible. But she's no longer with Disney. That doesn't mean that they're suddenly cured. It just means that this person left to go do damage someplace else. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that. No? Nobody?
Well, it just takes us right back into the you hire the best. You don't hire based on dye. You don't hire based on feminism. You don't hire based on gynocentrism, and you don't hire based on somebody having as their goal to change the company based on all those things. Because if you do, it might work out well for you in the beginning with BlackRock and those guys, but it's not going to work out well for you with the consumers, and it's not going to work out well in the end.
Yep. Well, I guess we have kind of like this topic in general has been, you know, a well-worn territory. But
there is one more thing I can say, and I'm going to go off about this.
All right.
But it's just going to be short. My kids liked the Little Mermaid when they were little, and I saw some Little Mermaid television shows. There was a character that was a person of color that had a disability that could have been expanded into a whole storyline for a great movie if their goal in creating this movie had actually been altruistic and an interest in showcasing differences among people and celebrating differences and stuff like that. They could have celebrated this existing character, but that's not what it was about, and that's why it bombed. It bombed because instead of taking a character that really was an example of diversity in their story system, that wasn't exactly like cookie cutter stamped Disney characters, they ignored that example and they had to race swap instead, and it pissed everybody off. So they got what they asked for.
Yeah,
I have seen the new Little Mermaid. In fact, the some of the top tier patrons may have seen mine and Allison's take on the whole movie. We went over it. And less than 1% of what we were talking about was based on the race of Ariel, because it wasn't that important. A lot of it was based on you'll remember the thing they did with the Lion King some years ago, and the thing they did with the Jungle Book some years ago. What Disney normally does is give everything big eyes.
Yeah.
Because you need big eyes. Big eyes are innocent. Big eyes are inviting, and this is why the sympathetic characters have big old Disney eyes, and the evil characters have tiny little piggy eyes. But what they attempted to do with the new Little Mermaid was take Sebastian, and instead of giving him big Disney eyes, let's just make him a crab.
Yeah. Oh, God, terrifying.
They made them look like photorealistic,
with,
but still in the uncanny valley.
yeah, he didn't have eyes; he just had stalks on the top of his head. It was the same with Flounder. They didn't give him big Disney eyes. They just made him just a flounder. He barely existed in it at all. He took a backseat to the fucking seagull. The less said about the seagull, the better. But when you try to see them doing the musical numbers, like Under the Sea and what have you, with a crab that just looks like a crab, with the fucking dead stalk eyes of a crab, you're just like, this is cursed. This is the exact definition of cursed.
Yes.
Like you can't do this. This is the whole point of having, animated two-dimensional characters who are drawn two-dimensionally with big old Disney eyes. When you just try and do the same thing with ordinary sea creatures, and like I'm not a fan of trying to anthropomorphize animals for the most part. If you can't do it with dogs and cats, then you can't fucking do it with crabs or sea creatures, because sea creatures they don't have eyes like we have them. They evolved them, but they evolved them convergently. Like they didn't even evolve the same eyes as we have them. Like you can't turn sea creatures into anthropomorphic, adorable characters, as they showed in this new fucking Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
It's just crabs. It's just sea creatures like fucking jellyfish that don't even have eyeballs. They're trying to make humans out of creatures that never resemble humans. And they're trying to take humans and, well,
Yeah.
I don't know what I can say about what they're trying to do with human characters without sounding racist. And like I said, that's the least of our problems. Like you don't need, the whole point of Disney movies was to take them from the third dimension that was imagined in those who read the original books, and to take them back into the second dimension, where we can make these things appealing to children.
Yeah.
And it worked. This is how Disney developed its renaissance in the 90s.
Yeah.
Because you can take anything, and as long as you give it nice big eyes, you can make children like it. But they're taking back everything they ever did. Let's fuck the Disney eyes.
Yeah.
Let's just
Well,
like lions belong to us now. Crabs belong to us now. Whatever other Disney classics, like I don't know, Milan. Chinese people belong to us now.
yeah. Except when they don't watch our movies.
Yeah, that's a whole of it. Oh God, should we talk about?
No. It's way too
This will
late.
go on another hour.
Yeah, we gotta stop. This is like a super long sausage. But
All I'm gonna say is, no submersibles went missing until these new mermaids moved into the neighborhood.
oh. Well, all I will say is I will talk about this a little bit more on another show, but I want to make the argument that even the original Little Mermaid was pretty woke and feminist. Because I think the Renaissance was trying to be more feminist, and a lot of people acknowledge it as such. So everything from The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas, all that, Aladdin, those are still good movies, but they were more feminist movies than the originals, and like Sleeping Beauty and Snow White. And I'm going to make the case for why the originals are still the best. But anyway, we will come back to that.
If I can get one last word on this.
Yeah.
I always go into a cycle when I think of these things, when I think of like the race swapping, and I think like, why can't they just go back to other source material? Like, who owns the rights to Static Shock these days, man?
Warner Brothers.
If anything should make a fucking comeback, And then I stop short of that and
no,
go, wait,
you're gonna
no, they'd ruin it.
Yeah,
They'd fucking ruin it.
absolutely
They don't
ruin
deserve
it.
Static Shock. Fuck them.
No, he'd probably be non-binary or something. No, don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't.
It's going to need a massive shift. One monkey is not going to stop this show.
No. Or we
need
fresh blood.
We need a radical shift.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to be hammered home that this shit doesn't work before they go back and resurrect anything old. And honestly, it's probably good they didn't they didn't expand that character, because maybe somebody in the future can now.
Yeah, maybe.
The corporate environment and the corporate attitude is gonna have to change. Yeah. And that's the hard one to achieve.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up. Marvel does not own Static Shock. That's a DC product. It's a Warner Brothers product, so you know. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up here. I want to thank you guys for coming on. I want to thank JoJo for staying in one place. Hey, JoJo, we're almost done. Okay, buddy.
Let's get the last few good boys in the chat for JoJo.
Give JoJo some virtual pats if you could. I know
he knows we're talking about.
He's
him.
super comfortable.
He's such a cutie pie.
Hopefully, let us know in the comments what you think about JoJo's appearance. Because if I can, anytime that Lindsay's working, I will bring JoJo on. Because if Lindsay's home, then he's gonna want to hang around with her. So
if you can't think of anything to comment, just comment. JoJo's a good boy.
Yeah, just let us know he's a good boy. All right, I do have some super chats, and then we're gonna wrap it up. So Richard Bier gives us $1.99 and says, "This sounds like that TikTok mom if she were armed." Talking about the previous story. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Alex Ligas gives us $5 and says, "Did you hear about the female police officer attacking a male domestic violence victim when the woman had a knife to his back?" I'll have to look it up. I did not. That would have made for a good story, but like this show's gone for.
Drop us a link.
Yeah, drop us a link.
It is not surprising if you look at the training that they get. They can consider him to be the threat, even if she's the most violent. All they have to do is rationalize. Well, she's smaller than he is. That's it.
All right, so we're gonna head into the patron show now. So I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. If you want to join us, go to feedthebadger.com and set up a monthly subscription, and you'll be able to watch the additional content. And hopefully JoJo will stay for that too. So if you guys like this video, please smash like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you all on the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.